In tonight's news edition, Jordan expresses its solidarity and support to the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain following the death of 27 of their soldiers in the Saudi-led anti-Houthi coalition in Yemen. The Russian president announces that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is ready to hold snap parliamentary elections and could share power with the opposition. And drowned migrant Syrian boys and their mother are buried in their hometown as Britain vows to increase Syria refugee aid by £100 million. Hello and welcome. Jordan has expressed its solidarity and support to the United Arab Emirates following the death of 22 of its soldiers in Yemen. Minister of State for Media Affairs and Communications, Mohammed al-Momani, said Jordan stands by the UAE during these hard times, as the soldiers were killed during operations in Yemen within the Arab alliance, led by Saudi Arabia to support the legitimate government there. The Houthis said they fired a rocket at a weapons cache in camp used by Gulf coalition forces in the central Ma'rib area, killing dozens of Emirati and Yemeni soldiers and destroying a number of helicopters and armed vehicles. The government also expressed its solidarity to Bahrain, as 5 of its soldiers were killed while on duty protecting the southern borders of Saudi Arabia. Momani expressed heartfelt condolences to the government of the UAE and Bahrain and the families of the soldiers. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is ready to hold snap parliamentary elections and could share power with what he called healthy opposition. Moscow has made clear it does not want to see al-Assad toppled and has seized on gains made by Daesh terrorists in Syria and Iraq to urge his foreign foes, including the United States and Saudi Arabia, to work with Damascus to combat the common enemy. However, al-Assad's foes have refused to cooperate with Damascus, fearing that would help legitimize his rule in Syria, where the Western Gulf states say he is part of the problem, not the solution, and must go. Moscow wants the US-led coalition to coordinate with the Syrian and Iraqi armies and moderate Syrian opposition on the ground, as well as Kurdish forces. Putin stressed the need for political changes in Syria and said al-Assad agreed to implement them.
We understand that there is also a need for political changes. We are working with our partners in Syria itself, and in general, there is an understanding that this uniting of efforts in fighting terrorism should go in parallel to some political process in Syria itself, and the Syrian president, by the way, agrees with that, all the way down to holding early elections, it says, parliamentary ones, establishing contacts with the so-called healthy opposition, bringing them into government.
Syria's antiquities chief said Daesh has blown up 3 ancient funeral towers in the ancient city of Palmyra. UNESCO has condemned the destruction of a war crime, or as a war crime, aimed at wiping out evidence of Syria's diverse cultural history. The militants, who have already attacked 2 Roman-era temples in the city, blew up the tombs, including that of Ilah Bel, built in the early 2nd century AD. The 4-story building was one of the best preserved of Palmyra's funeral towers, sandstone constructions built to hold the remains of the ancient city's richest families. The group is keeping tight control on communications inside the city, making it difficult to track events. In the past 2 weeks, the militants blew up part of the Temple of Bel, one of Palmyra's most significant features, and the Baal Shmin temple, as well as a row of columns. The 2 young Syrian brothers and their mother, who drowned while trying to reach Greece, were buried in their hometown of Kobani in northern Syria. The distraught father begged Arab countries to do more to help Syrian refugees. This report has more.
A tiny coffin containing the body of a child comes home for burial. 2 Syrian toddlers who drowned with their mother while trying to reach Greece were laid to rest in their hometown of Kobani. 3-year-old Aylan Kurdi was one of them, captured in images that have provoked outrage and sadness throughout the world. The pictures have come to symbolize the perceived inability of developed nations to help desperate refugees streaming into Europe from war-torn places like Kobani. The children's father, Abdullah Kurdi, says he wants Arab governments to take responsibility.
I want from Arab governments, not European countries, to see what happened to my children, and because of them to help people. I don't want anything else.
Abdullah's family had wanted to emigrate to Canada after fleeing Syria. But now Abdullah has returned to bury his wife and children and contemplate life without them.
Migrants on the Hungarian train in the town of Bishke have agreed to end the standoff with riot police and begun to voluntarily leave the train. Police said the people would be transported to a migrant camp in the town. Also today, Prime Minister David Cameron said Britain will spend a further £100 million on humanitarian aid to address the Syrian refugee crisis. With Europe engulfed in the crisis as thousands of migrants and refugees from the Middle East and Africa seek ways into the continent for safety and better lives, Cameron had come under fire over Britain's lack of solidarity.
Today I can announce that we will do more, providing resettlement for thousands more Syrian refugees. We will continue with our approach of taking them from the refugee camps. This provides them with a more direct and safe route to the United Kingdom, rather than risking the hazardous journey which has tragically cost so many their lives. We will discuss how best to design these schemes and the numbers we will take with NGOs and with our partners, and we will set out more details next week.
Over to Egypt, 6 soldiers, including 4 Americans, were injured in 2 blasts in northeast Sinai caused by improvised explosive devices. According to a Pentagon statement, the multinational force and observer peacekeepers were evacuated to a medical facility where all are receiving treatment for non-life-threatening injuries. The 4 Americans were struck by the second blast as they were en route to help the soldiers hurt in the first blast. Militants were suspected of killing 16 border guards last month in northern Sinai, raising the Pentagon's concerns about the deteriorating security conditions in the region. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, His Royal Highness Prince Zayed bin Raad, has received the 2015 Stockholm Human Rights Award in recognition of his work in the pursuit of advancing international justice and for strengthening respect for human rights. Prince Zayed received the award at a ceremony in Stockholm, conferred annually by the Swedish Bar Association, the International Bar Association and the International Legal Assistance Consortium. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has a robust track record on accountability for grave crimes, fighting against sexual and gender-based violence, the trafficking of human beings and illicit narcotics, and insisting on a zero-tolerance policy for such offences. A man paralyzed from the waist down after falling from a second-story window has been treated with robotic step training and stimulation of the spinal cord. The breakthrough technology allowed him to take thousands of steps, to the delight of scientists from the University of California in Los Angeles. The team of scientists reported that Mark Pollock was able to voluntarily control his leg muscles with the use of a robotic exoskeleton. The procedure used a battery-powered wearable suit that allows people to move their legs in a step-like fashion. Pollock is the first person with complete paralysis to regain enough voluntary control to actively work with a device. In a marathon game, Andy Murray powered past Frenchman Adrien Manarino 5-7, 4-6, 6-1, 6-3, 6-1 after dropping the first 2 sets of their second-round encounter at the US Open. The world number 3 finished off the extreme turnaround with his 21st ace to end the match that lasted for 3 hours and 17 minutes. And Roger Federer kept up his sprint through the early rounds of the tournament, steamrolling Steve Darcis of Belgium 6-1, 6-2, 6-1 to reach the third round. And in the women's draw, Czech Petra Setkovska stunned Caroline Wozniacki 6-4, 5-7, 7-6. Setkovska rode a powerful forehand that produced 29 of her 61 winners to victory, saving 4 match points held by the Dane, all on winners off a racket.
2 sets to 1, 6-4, 5-7, 7-6.
Now, a quick look at the weather forecast. Fair across much of the hilly areas and relatively hot in the Jordan Valley, with a low touching the 30-degree mark at the Dead Sea. As for tomorrow, hot and dry weather will prevail countrywide, with northwesterly brisk winds stirring up dust across the Badia region. Next to the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. Now, to close our top stories once again. Jordan expresses its solidarity and support to the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain following the death of 27 of their soldiers in the Saudi-led anti-Houthi coalition in Yemen. The Russian president says Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is ready to hold snap parliamentary elections and could share power with the opposition. And drowned migrant boys and their mother are buried in their hometown as Britain vows to increase Syria refugee aid by £100 million. And that's the end of tonight's news. My name is Raed Leptouche. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good night.